Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today going over NAL once again. This time it'll be for week number 2 of stage number 2 of 2023. We've got a super week on our hands here, and so 18 games to talk about. So I guess without further ado, let's get into it. First up is M80 versus Space Station. This is SSG's first game of the stage, and unfortunately for them, it doesn't go too well. This is a 7-1 victory in favor of M80 on Nighthaven Labs. The one round that SSG did win was a 1v1 clutch by Hot and Cold, but SSG also got clutched on a few times, so had a few things gone differently, SSG probably would have gotten a few more round wins, but a whole lot would have had to change for this to be anything but a 3-point victory for M80. Iconic and Spoit went nuclear this game, 12-2 for Iconic, 2-0 on entry, and 13-4 for Spoit with 1-0 on entry, whereas on Space Station, only Forest going positive on kills at 8-7, and their new pickup Ashen not starting out too well, going 3-7. Game number 2 is Oxygen versus Wildcard, and we finally see Wildcard drop a point, and not just 1 point, but 3. They lose the game 7-4. The map was Clubhouse, and even though Wildcard was better on the entry and better at planting, and they had Merc going 14-7 on kills, Oxygen came out ahead with Newers as their best player. Game number 3, M80 back to play again, this time against Beast Coast. And unfortunately, Beast Coast continues on without a point. They lose this game 7-2 to M80. We see a 10-4 from Gomez, a 10-4 from Spoit, everybody else on M80 also going positive on kills, everybody going -2 or worse on Beast Coast on kills. Just a really calm, cool, and collected victory for M80. No rounds where anybody got a 4K or an ace. M80 didn't even plant, Beast Coast did twice, and nobody in the game had a clutch. Game number 2 of the day, Space Station is back to play again, this time against Luminosity, and SSG does get a point on the board, but only the single point, Luminosity taking the game 8-6. The map is Cafe, and it's the first time we see it for the week, but by the end of the week, it'll have been the most played map in the league by far. On SSG, impressive performances come out from Hot and Cold and Ashen, but J90, Bolts, and Forest were all pretty lackluster. On Luminosity, Eddie and Silent were the two big performers, and nobody besides Asian doing too badly in this matchup, Asian going 5-10 on kills and 0-4 on entry. And so this game puts Luminosity on 2-2 in terms of wins and losses, with both of their wins coming in overtime, and it puts Space Station on 0-2 with only a single point to show for their 2 games played. Game number 5 for the week is Oxygen versus Mirage. They go head-to-head on Skyscraper, and we see Mirage take the victory 7-5. Nobody on Oxygen really did too badly, everyone on the team ranging from -2 to +2 on KD and -1 to +2 on entry. And for Mirage, it was really Kansan and Vertical that secured them this victory, 14-10 on kills for Kansan, 11-6 for Vertical. And the thing that really got them across the line in this matchup was the fact that Kansan had a 1v2 clutch and Vertical had 2 1v2 clutches. A bit of a revenge game for Vertical here. He did quite well against his old team of Oxygen. And he also played against them a few times last stage when he was on Beast Coast. Oxygen actually beat him and his team in the very first game of the stage without really breaking a sweat. But when they met again in the playoffs, Vertical had a good performance and his team really crushed Oxygen, only dropping 4 rounds in 2 maps. So Vertical is actually now on a 3-map streak against Oxygen, all of them in regulation. And the final game of Playday number 3 was Dark Zero versus Beast Coast. This was a 7-5 victory for Dark Zero on Chalet. And this actually means that in the 6 games on Playday number 3, we saw 6 different maps. After this game, Beast Coast still yet to get a point on the board, but this was their closest game so far. They were just a single round away from securing a single point. This game was really a Pamba party through and through. He went 17-5 on KD, 3-0 on entry, 92% cost, but he actually did all of this pretty quietly. He didn't have any rounds where he got a 4K or an ace or a clutch, and he only had a single 3-kill round. So in one round, he didn't get any kills. In one round, he got that 3K, and every other round of the game, he either just got 1 or 2 kills. And the top performer for Beast Coast was Doc, going 12-10 on KD and 3-2 on entry. Day number 4 kicks off with Sonics versus Mirage. This is a 7-4 victory for Sonics on Chalet. We saw quite a few clutches in this game, 5 of them in the 11 rounds played, 2 of them coming out for Sonics, 3 of them for Mirage. But the clutches were maybe not even the most notable thing about this game. Sonics went +7 on entry overall, only dropping 2 entry engagements, with Citizen, Grixer, and Geo combining for a flawless 7-0 on entry. And the Sonics were also +10 on kills overall, with Citizen getting +9 of that. So that really goes to show that even though it was a 7-4 and so a fairly close scoreline, Sonics were very dominant in a lot of the rounds that they won, and Mirage barely scraped together most of the rounds that they won. Game number 8 for the week is Space Station versus Beast Coast. Up to this point, Space Station has basically had an identical start to that of the Sonics. They started out with a regulation loss and then an overtime loss, and then they play Beast Coast in their 3rd game. When the Sonics played against Beast Coast, they took the win 7-4, but Space Station, they do fall to Beast Coast, giving them their third loss in a row, and Beast Coast their very first win. Beast Coast take this matchup 8-7. They played on Nighthaven Labs, and I think a lot of people really questioned this pick for Space Station because they got beaten so badly here by M80. And one really important thing to note for Beast Coast in this matchup and all of their upcoming matchups, Reverse is unable to play, so they subbed in Tristan instead. SSG was actually the better team in terms of entry and clutches in this matchup. Very impressively, Fultz, playing primarily Thermite on attack, went 14-11 on KD, 4-2 on entry with a clutch, and J90 with 13-12 on KD, 2-1 on entry, also had a clutch. The really big standout for Beast Coast was Tristan in his NAL debut, going 17-10 on KD, but do keep in mind that a good number of those frags were impactless in rounds that they did lose. And Mr. B, even though he went dead even on KD at 11-11, he went 0-5 on entry. Dark Zero versus Sonics for game number 9 of the week. We see another round 15 game, this time Sonics take it down, 8-7 of course. And this and the previous match were not only both 15 round games, but they were both also played on Nighthaven. Hanba on top for Dark Zero once again, this time going 13-10, but the star of the show was none other than the Mexican bandit Grixer over on Sonics, going 17-9. Alright, now past the halfway point, we have game number 10, M80 versus Luminosity is a 7-4 victory for M80 on Bank. This marks back-to-back games on Bank for M80 and back-to-back 3-point victories as well. Luminosity showed up big in the first part of this game, going up 4-2 after their defensive half, which is pretty solid on Bank. But then M80 win 5 defensive rounds of their own in a row to secure the map 7-4, one of them actually being a pretty impressive clutch round from Spoit. But the best player in this matchup overall was Kino, going 11-7 on KD and 3-0 on entry. Nice to see since he hasn't been having the greatest stage overall, but sometimes when you're the hard support player, that's just how it goes. And I don't think anybody's going to complain too much with how well M80's done so far. We had that last game to break up the action a little bit, but now we have the third 15-round game of the day. Space Station back to lose once again in overtime, this time to Oxygen, and this time on Cafe. We see another 17-kill game from Yaga on Cafe. I guess this is just his map. He also went 4-1 on entry. And another great game from Fultz, second game in a row where he's the top-rated player for Space Station, this time going 14-12 on KD and 4-1 on entry as a Habana main. Final game of day number 4, but don't worry, we have a whole nother day to talk about. We have M80 versus Wildcard battling to take the top spot in the league. This one was a bit of a nail-biter. Wildcard managed to go up 6-3, but M80 win 3 rounds in a row to push it to overtime, but then in overtime 2 rounds for Wildcard and they secure the matchup 8-6. A revenge game for Spirits here. Not long ago he played on M80, but Surf was the top performer for Wildcard, going 16-9. And I also have to mention Iconic over on M80 going 17-8, top fragging the lobby. And now moving into the final playday of the week, we have playday number 5, starting with Dark Zero versus Luminosity. A solid victory for Dark Zero here, winning 7-2 on Cafe. We see an incredible game come out from NJR here, going 13-1 on KD, 1-0 on entry, 100% cost, 1-1VX, and a plant. And we see everybody on Luminosity struggling, ranging anywhere from a -2 to a -5 KD, but they all actually had identical 44% cost. SSG versus Sonics, and finally a victory for Space Station, but they do have to go to round 15 once again to do it. And really, this was Sonic's game to lose. Not only were they going up against a winless SSG, but they won the first 4 rounds in a row. The next 2 rounds went to Space Station, of course, making it a 4-2 defensive half for Sonics. This was then matched by Space Station to push overtime, and then a round for Space Station, a round for Sonics. And finally, in their 3rd round 15 attempt in a row and 4th overtime in a row, Space Station takes it. Ashton, the best player for Space Station, most notably going 5-2 on the entry, and over on Sonics, Grixer and Rexon with 13 kills apiece. Game number 15, M80 versus Mirage. M80 gets back on track with another 3-point victory after their recent loss to Wildcard. They take it 7-2. They play on Clubhouse and Gomez goes insane, 13-6 on KD, 5-0 on entry, 100% cost. And decent showings from Spiker and Vertical, but pretty poor showings from Slothy and Rampy over on Mirage, with Slothy going 0-4 on entry. Getting close to the end here, we have game number 16, Oxygen versus Sonics, and Sonics return to overtime once again, but this time they get a win, 8-6 over Oxygen. They play on Consulate, and despite an ace from Dream, a 1v1 diffused clutch by Foxay, and 14-9 on KD by Newers, Sonics was definitely the better team here. Rexon, the biggest standout, going 16-8 on KD, 4-0 on entry, and he was actually the one that got 1v1 diffused on by Foxay, so I guess that wasn't enough to keep him down. And not too far behind him, we have Citizen on 15-8. The penultimate game of week number 2, Beast Coast versus Mirage, and unfortunately for them, Beast Coast back to their losing ways. They do take the first 3 rounds in a row, but then 7 rounds in a row for Mirage get them the win 7-3, and keep them fairly competitive fighting for that 6th place spot. Biff was the top performer on Beast Coast, going 11-8 on KD. He was basically the only reason they won rounds 2 and 3, getting a 4K in round 2 and a 3K in round 3. And over on Mirage, the 3 top performers, Rampy, Kansan, and Vertical, each had 9 kills, and Spiker and Slothy, although they were the 2 lower rated players, they each had a 1vx and a plant. And for the final game of the week, game number 18, we have Space Station versus Wildcard. Finally, a regulation victory for Space Station, causing Wildcard to finally not end a playday as the top team in the league, M80 instead taking that spot. We see yet another cafe for this matchup, its 7th play for the stage. It's another great game from Ashen, going 13-7 on KD, 2-1 on entry, and over on Wildcard, 12-8 from Spirits with 2-0 on entry. So at the end of week number 2, with 5 playdays played and only 1 playday remaining in the group stage, let's take a look at the player stats. The top 5 rated players in the league are Gomez, Panba, Kansan, Iconic, and Tristan a bit of a cop-out because he's only played 2 maps as opposed to everybody else having played at least 6, so 6th place is Yaga. Panba has the best KD at plus 23. Gomez, Panba, and Spirits all share the best entry differential on plus 7 apiece. Gomez stands alone at the top in terms of cost, and I feel like we don't generally see this big of a gap between the top player and all the other players in terms of cost, but Gomez has 78% and the next closest players are on 72. The most clutch player in the league at the moment is Citizen with 4 1vx's, Spirits and Slothy each have 3, and the plantingest player is Geo with Dream and Spiker on 9, Canadian on 8, and Kansan on 7. And Mirage is still the team that's planted the most by a pretty solid amount with 23, and I think unsurprisingly because they're the top team in the league, M80 is the best team on entry at plus 10. And now for the map stats, every map in the pool has been played at least once, and other than Consulate, every map has been played at least twice. Like I mentioned earlier, Cafe, the most played map in the pool by far at 7 plays, Bank, Border, Chalet, and Nighthaven each with 4. And at the moment, the only attacker-sided maps are Border and Chalet, with Clubhouse and Consulate being dead even. Every other map is at least 54% in favor of the defenders. And at the very end here, we have the standings. I'll read them down the line, top to bottom. We have M80, Wildcard, Dark Zero, Oxygen, Sonics, Mirage, Space Station, Luminosity, and Beast Coast. But do keep in mind that Luminosity, Space Station, and Dark Zero each have 2 games to play in the final playday, whereas each other team only has 1. And with the standings as they are, the top 5 teams, M80, Wildcard, Dark Zero, Oxygen, and Sonics, are all confirmed to make top 6 and thus to make the playoffs. And Beast Coast is eliminated from making the playoffs. Mirage, Space Station, and Luminosity are fighting for that last spot. At this point, Space Station has the best shot of taking that 3rd spot because they're tied on points with Mirage, but they have 1 more game to play than them. And they have the same number of games to play as Luminosity, but they have 3 more points than them. But Luminosity play Beast Coast in the first game of playday number 6, so there's a good shot that they'll get the full 3 points there. And Mirage plays Space Station in the second game of playday number 6, so if Mirage is able to get the full 3 points there, then the next 2 games, Luminosity versus Oxygen and Space Station versus Dark Zero, will become very interesting. And for the final 2 games, we have M80 versus Sonics and Dark Zero versus Wildcard. All 4 of those teams are already confirmed for top 6, so those teams are really just going to be playing for seeding. And I think that's going to do it for the video, so let me know down in the comments who you think is going to take that 6th spot. Is it going to be Mirage, Space Station, or Luminosity? Yes, Space Station does have the best shot of making it, but Mirage and Luminosity could both certainly sneak in there, especially given that Mirage plays against Space Station. And so with all of that being said, a like and a subscription would be very much appreciated. I will catch you guys next time.